The Oracle Network.
Welcome to Brew Crime Podcast, where we drink brews and talk crime, conspiracies, or whatever catches our attention. This is Mike and my co-host,
JT.
All right. So this episode, we are going to be doing crimes of the Yukon territories. So that is north of British Columbia. Very, very big and very, very few people.
I was going to say very big, very sparse.
Yes.
Yeah. And, it's cool. I think it's great that we're doing the provinces.
And territories.
Thank you. I feel like I make that mistake every single time. I'll learn one day. This stupid American will learn. But I think it's great because I get to learn a little bit about everything. Even if it's centered around crime, I still get a good feel for it. So
yeah, exactly. Just for people, it's very, very large. 482,000 square kilometers, or 186,000 square miles, basically.
Jesus.
With 4.8% of Canada's population. Population in 2021 is 42,596 people.
So let me just put this in perspective for some folks. That's like the size of the University of Virginia.
Yes.
That's like all 4 years and grad school at one college.
Yeah. Although, looking at Wikipedia here quickly, it's got an impressive GDP of $3.089 billion.
It's all them beaver skins.
It's actually all the resources and stuff, but yeah.
Yeah. I've just found it fascinating. You know, the fact that, and let's be honest, the U.S. is the same way in terms of one state next to another is completely different.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating, the cultures and how they can be bordered with each other, but totally different.
Yeah, like BC's main industry is lumber, tourism, that kind of stuff, and illegal trade. It was always pot back in the day, and now that's legal. But like Yukon, I just Googled here too, and it's main industry is mining, which is lead, zinc, silver, gold, asbestos, and copper.
Asbestos can't be going well.
It still is, it seems.
I don't understand that.
As long as it's treated properly, it still has great use. It's just very dangerous to use because of the carcinogenic properties.
Right.
Yes.
I would call that. But if I wanted to be a lumberjack, if I wanted to swing from tree to tree and be okay, I'd come to British Columbia.
Yeah, probably.
That's
Although it's all on fire right now, so probably not. But
I was gonna say nature's kind of doing the job for me.
Yeah.
We've talked about this a lot, but I just want to let people know up in Canada who are going through that my thoughts are with them, and I know thoughts aren't worth much.
Yeah,
but for folks who are always looking for something to help out with, this is definitely that. So, do a quick Google search. It's not hard to find a nonprofit that's helping.
Yeah, for sure.
But please.
There's been things set up to help out the town of Lynn that burned down, and there's all kinds of things you can help towards the forest fires.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a billion GoFundMes out there.
Yeah.
And all of them legitimate, because it is, I just want people to think about where they're listening to this and imagine that just gone.
Yeah.
Like everything.
Yeah. And not just BC. If you're in Washington, look for that. If you're in Oregon, California, if you're all across Canada, wherever you are, if there's forest fires and it's ravaging your province, state, territory, see if you can help out.
Yeah, and if you can't help out directly, like monetarily, see if you can go and check out, because chances are there's a fire brigade that's near you that's gone and responded. So see if you can do something for them too.
Yeah, you never know. I know BC right now has forest firefighters from Mexico here right now, and often we have, I don't know if they do this year, but we often have firefighters from Australia and all over the world here, because we've had a a bad decade, basically.
My grandfather was an Irish fighter. I get it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
But yeah, let's do something. We there was a lot of money that was pulled together for Australia.
Yeah.
And so I think we could do the same thing, for Canada and also the west coast of the US too. So
yeah, exactly. And I mean,
and
hey, Greece, I think, is right now on fire.
I was gonna literally say good Greece.
I think Russia's on fire too. Like, it's just the world is not happy right now.
It's not wrong.
No, it's not. No.
Earth is not wrong.
No.
Yeah. In short, we're doing cases based in Yukon.
Yes, there's there are still fires there, but I don't think there's quite as many.
Yeah.
Yeah. The permafrost is mostly gone these days, but
you're not making me feel better.
No. And, it's a little scary considering as the permafrost goes, there's all kinds of viruses and stuff they've been finding that have been dormant for millions of years. Who knows what's going to happen? We all know what's going to happen.
This is why we drink beer.
Yes, exactly.
All right. So, my case is based on the Yukon Christmas murders, which happened a while ago.
Yeah,
let's just throw that out there.
Both of our cases are going to be very historic here.
Yeah, but I chose, in terms of beer, I chose the Brekenridge Brewery's Vanilla Porter, which is quite interesting. And I like a good porter. I like a beer that's a meal. This isn't entirely a meal. It might be a light meal. But I will say that, in pouring it, there was a deep dark brown color. Some people call it motor oil. I wouldn't call this one motor oil.
It looked a little thin for that.
It was. But, it's got, the smell's very like vanilla, like it's advertised. And there's some chocolate hints in there. In terms of taste, it's much stronger than just the smell. There is some vanilla in there. There's some chocolate. Roasted nuts kind of show up late in the finish of it, which is pretty good. Overall, it's a nice porter. It does the job. I don't think it's as heavy as I like usually. I think it's a little lighter. And I think it surprised me that it was light. But overall, I like it. So I think I'd go with, take a look at Brekenridge Brewery's Vanilla Porter.
Where are they located, actually?
They are located in Littleton, Colorado, and Fort Collins, Colorado.
Oh, there you go.
All right. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and dive on in. The Yukon's always been an area of this continent that I've heard stories about. And no, not really.
There be gold in those hills.
There be gold. I haven't heard much about the Yukon other than the Klondike Gold Rush until I started researching this case. But, that's kind of beside the point. And it probably comes as no surprise to anybody listening, to be honest with you. My only introduction to the Yukon were some pieces of pop culture that I saw as a kid, right, or a young adult. Movies like White Fang or books like Call of the Wild by Jack London. Those were kind of my gateways to the area. Other movies include The Far Country with Jimmy Stewart, Yukon Gold, Yukon Manhunt. But here's the thing about pop culture in the Yukon. It either deals with sled dogs and racing, the gold rush, or something violent.
That's about right. Yep.
There are some folk songs that came out of the Klondike Gold Rush with really original titles, like "Rush to the Klondike" by W.T. Diefenbaker, or the Klondike Diefenbaker. Sorry, Diefenbaker.
Get it right, damn it.
I should say it like it's spelled. Or the Klondike Gold Rush. Or I've Got the Klondike Fever. Or La Chanson du Klondike. Let's be honest. They're not as original as they make themselves out to be.
You going to sing one?
Yes, Le Chanson, for sure.
Please do.
There's nothing like my mouth saying, what the fuck are you saying? That's French to me.
Yeah,
I took 6 years of German. It didn't help.
No.
But there's a theme here, right? Yeah, there's a theme. There has to be more to Yukon than just the gold rush and racing and, well, the Wild West with ice, right?
The Wild North. Northwest.
The Wild North with ice.
But not as west as Alaska.
Right. Let's make that clear.
Next door.
We don't own them. So I took a little bit of time to take a look at the history of the Yukon because And folks are going to learn this about me. I think knowing the area is important to understanding the entire story, or, it provides a little more context. Central and southern Yukon, they were populated by the First Nations people long before the Europeans showed up. Let's throw that out there right away.
Yes.
The earliest presence of a population talked about the volcanic eruption of Mount Churchill around 800 AD in what is now Alaska. The eruption blanketed southern Yukon with a layer of ash, and the layer can still be seen along the Klondike Highway, apparently, is what I have read. The First Nations on the coast, they had some pretty intense networks for trading. Then, of course, the Europeans came in. Yay! But what did they do? They came in to take advantage of the early 19th century with the fur trade, which is then followed by missionaries, because nothing like skinning to then follow praying, right? Or praying to follow skinning.
Yeah, no doubt.
So fur coats and religion. Let's go Europeans. Yeah. All I can say is how predictable. That's pretty much how I say it.
Oldest company in North America was started by the fur trade, right? Hudson's Bay Company.
I've learned so much. So near the end of the 19th century, around the 1870s and the 1890s, gold miners started showing up. It wasn't enough to wreck the ecosystem and whatever religion or beliefs they had. We had to come in and steal more. And no, I'm not value signaling. I'm just saying this is exactly what happened.
Yep.
So once the gold miners arrived, there was a population increase, which then began the start of the Klondike Gold Rush in 1897. The population increased so dramatically that a police force was actually established. So that's pretty intense.
Yeah.
The gold rush was something else. Good grief, the gold rush. Yukon Cornelius. I know you're waiting for it. Here it is. There's gold in them there hills, yo. It was something else. So an estimated 100,000 prospectors came to the region within a period of 3 years.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Some of those folks did indeed become wealthy, but most of them went and then they left penniless. But I guess it's all about the hunt, right? That's how hunters make themselves feel better when they don't actually shoot anything.
Yeah, exactly.
When they're shitty shots, they say it's all about the hunt. Yeah, okay. All right.
It's all about the fishing. Not about the catching.
It's all about the experience and the fun you have. You hoser?
Yeah.
Did I use that right?
Yeah, you did, hosehead.
Yes. I'll own it. I want a trophy. Damn it. I want the hosehead trophy. I don't even know what it means. Okay.
Strange Brew. So, it's a good sort of movie. I don't know.
So where does this come into our story? Or really what part of this history means anything to the story? The story actually takes place around the area of Dawson City. The city was a central hub and was located where the Klondike and the Yukon rivers meet. To give you an idea about the growth of this town, in 1896, there was a population of 500. By summer of 1898, the population swelled to 30,000. Crazy. The town was, quote, built of wood, isolated, and unsanitary. Surprise. Dawson suffered from fires, high prices, and epidemics. Despite this, the wealthiest prospectors spent extravagantly, gambling and drinking in the saloons.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a simpler time. Now, out of the gold rush, only a couple hundred at most became extremely wealthy.
Yeah.
But of course, the unsung consideration is that the native people of the region were impacted greatly. Now, I'm going to possibly butcher these names with my mush mouth, but I'm going to go ahead and try it. The Tlingit?
I'm not sure, actually.
I'm going to go with Tlingit and Koyukon people prospered at the beginning as they worked as guides, packers, and by selling food and supplies to the prospectors. Despite this, they and other groups like the Han people suffered due to damage done by miners and the relocation they had to deal with. Their population dropped due to contaminated water and smallpox.
Never happens.
No, never. Just an entire population of people. But their fishing and their hunting grounds had also been destroyed. So, all for just a few hundred wealthy people.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, this isn't about the gold rush. It's not about the damage or the wealth, even though that's a decent story and one that probably should be told. So we're actually here to discuss the Christmas Day murders of 1899. So there were two major sources that I found that got me really excited about this case. And I actually wanted to shout them out. And they're going to be posted on the Brew Crime website, so you can see them as well. The first was an original report by Major Henry Woodside, which was written in 1901. At the time, he was the managing editor of the Yukon Sun. The second resource was a really well-organized 4-part blog called The Christmas Day Murders, and that was posted to Welcome to the Yukon. So, welcome to the Yukon. Here's a story about murders.
Yeah, but old murders.
Well, that's true. Yes, they're long gone. But that website, both of these stories were amazing. They were almost a one-stop shop. If there wasn't information in one, there was certainly some in another. Of course, I looked up more than just that, but they were really cool. It was nifty to read.
Yeah.
So much so that I used the word nifty. In either case, this case has 3 victims: Frederick Clayson, Lynn Relfe, and Lawrence Olsen, who were ambushed and killed along the Yukon River Winter Trail, pretty much simply because someone or some pair of people wanted whatever they had.
The Yukon Winter Trail, so all-year trail. No, I'm just kidding.
So the case is impressive because at the time, as I think we all know, there wasn't much in the way of technology.
No, especially up there.
Right. The telegraph had just been installed up on the Yukon, and it was still being expanded, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Despite that, right, observation, common sense, and good detective work really led to closure on this case. And we always talk about cases back in the 70s and 80s and even early 90s where there was no DNA, right? Like, we didn't have the DNA evidence. It was really difficult. Well, in this case, like, it didn't matter because the detective work was so good. Like, it just made sense.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. Imagine that hard work.
What's that?
I don't know. It's called podcasting now. That's what it's called. A lot of work, little yield.
Yeah, exactly.
So let me just add a couple more things about the locality around the time of the murders. These are just quick snippets. So the Yukon River Winter Trail, it mainly hosted riverboat travel around the 1890s, and it was possible for less than half the year. People traveling during the winter only had the Yukon Winter Trail to use, and it wasn't until the fall of 1902 when there was a quicker option available when another trail was completed. And this was called the White Horse Dawson Overland Trail. And people could ride in their horse-drawn carriages because that's what people did in the late 1800s. Before that, though, once the river was frozen, people walked the river. More traffic meant that it was better packed in, and the main mode of travel here was by walking, bicycling, dog sleds, and a few horse-drawn sleighs. So, you know, that one-horse open sleigh. Yeah.
Yep.
Dude, people have a hard enough time bicycling on, like, pavement. I can't imagine bicycling on ice. I guess it was heavy packed with snow.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, probably.
I live in Virginia. People think it snows here. It does not snow here. It's funny to watch people think it snows here. It does not snow here.
It doesn't snow here either, really. But there it does. Especially then it did.
Yes. So roadhouses and stopping places, once the gold rush was really getting moving, folks saw an income opportunity and they began building roadhouses for folks to stay at. Some were pretty impressive while others were primitive and, as the kids say, totally basic, yo.
Well said. Well said.
I don't think that's what the kids say.
They might have 10 years ago.
Yeah. By the fall of 1898, there were about 35 roadhouses and stopping places, averaging 14 miles between them. The spacing was enough that even in the midwinter, with minimal hours of daylight for travel, people that stayed at these places rather than camp out, they didn't have to carry sleeping gear and food. So one to the next, to the next, to the next. The Northwest Mounted Police Posts. In 1898, there were a series of police posts built along the Yukon River since the roads were becoming so busy. Posts connected to the murders specifically were Five Fingers, Hoochie-Coo, I think it's Hoochie-Coo.
Probably, and it's probably a very indigenous name, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's not a double E, so I'm going to go with a kind of a light E there. Yeah. So, and then Fort Selkirk. And then also the Yukon Telegraph was completed late September 1899, so pretty much right as these things were happening. And that brought communications to Dawson City, which were central to the murder case. Messages used to take month by mail, longer in the winter. So
much longer, I'm sure.
Yeah, I have no doubt. I just imagine this guy just carrying a pack, just with like his snowshoes on, just like
dogs, mush.
dogs. So white fag.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So messages were now received within a week. And it wasn't until 2 years later that time between sending and receiving is reduced to 10 minutes. So, wow.
Yeah.
As we're filming this on Zoom, right? Immediately.
Exactly.
Across the continent. So telegraph stations were eventually established along the line. And in 1899, there were 12 stations built in the Yukon. Because the telegraph service was so vital to the NWMP, the linemen were often known and assisted by police members. This does come into play in a little bit. So, who were O'Brien and Graves?
Who were they?
Not much is known about Thomas Graves. These, by the way, are the two folks that did indeed commit the crime. Let me just bury the lead. Not much is known about Thomas Graves. We know he might have been an Englishman, and that's about it.
Damn.
We don't even really know if that was his true name. But O'Brien, that's someone we know a bit about. He is what I define as a raucously horrendous human being.
Oh, geez.
So here's a little timeline on him. George Andrew Martin Lane O'Brien. If you thought 2 middle names was hoity-toity, try 3. He was born in 1864 in Jersey in the British Channel Islands.
Ooh, jeez.
He has 2 siblings, an older sister and a younger brother. And by 1881, they'd lived in Birmingham, England, and George was listed as a blacksmith. In 1888, O'Brien was charged and found guilty of feloniously shooting with intent to murder and inflicting grievous bodily harm with the intent to rob.
I love what crime sounded like back then.
I know. It sounds a lot fancier.
Yeah,
really, he just shot a gun.
Yeah.
And then from 1888 to 1894, he spent 7 years at Dartmoor Prison in southwest England. So there's a piece of information that says by 1898, he reached Dawson City in the Yukon. Within the month, O'Brien, quote, suggested to a man named Chris Williams that they should work together in robbing travelers on the river trail.
I think they should have sent him to Australia. Jeez.
I'm just saying. But he suggested to Chris Williams that they should work together in robbing travelers on the river trail, as people were sometimes known to carry a fair amount of gold or cash with them. The plan included murdering the victims and disposing their bodies under the ice. Keep that in mind. In September 1898, O'Brien is arrested in Dawson City for theft. He then spent some time in hard labor on the NWMP woodpile, which just... I have no idea what that means.
I don't know either.
But honestly, it must have sucked, though. Because he broke out. Yeah. He was recaptured, and then they added 6 more months onto his sentence. So, fun.
Yep.
While he was in jail then, he met a prisoner named George West, who went by Kid West. He suggested the exact same robbery plan to him. And Kid West basically said, nope, no thank you.
Kanye West? No.
He said, you must be confusing me for Kanye.
Yeah.
But he might as well have just said, you're fucking insane. And at this point, I think it's important to realize that this wasn't robbery for the sake of robbery, right? Like, what robbery was a reason or a means to murder.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it sounds like. So O'Brien was released from jail on September 16th, 1899, and they ordered him to leave the Yukon.
Wow.
Like, you have to be really shitty to be told, like, I'm going to need you to leave this territory. Oh, you mean the city? No, the territory.
Territory.
You mean the general 10 to 15 mile rate? No, I need you to get out.
Yes.
Get the fuck out.
And back then it would have been miles too.
Yeah, fair. That didn't happen, obviously.
Yeah.
He didn't leave. Near the end of his time in jail, or maybe just after, he met Thomas Graves. They decided to travel together.
Fuck.
And O'Brien, O'Brien, Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
O'Brien told Graves about his plan, and Graves was pretty much the dog that followed along. Like, which way did he go, George? Which way did he go? That's pretty much Thomas Graves. So they went south from Dawson City, and they stayed at some of the roadhouses along the way. Before they went south, they stole 2 dogs. This becomes important a little later on. There's a lot of foreshadowing in this, obviously. You can
Ruff,
tell.
ruff. Or is it, oh?
Either way, I seriously thought that was the dogs behind me barking. Well done, sir.
Nice.
Impressive. So there was a massive yellow and white Saint Bernard and a smaller black dog. So not exactly a Chihuahua.
And not dog sled dogs either.
No. So not like one in 100 that show up.
Yeah.
It's pretty evident, right? So I don't know what happened to laying low, but they forgot about it. The dogs were so inconspicuous that that's how police ultimately were able to track where they had been and they had left and gone to. And so it was primarily through the dogs and a few other smaller observations. So around December 11th, 1899, O'Brien and Graves were staying near Hell's Gate, which is obviously a pretty bad section of river for the riverboards.
That's interesting. There's actually a Hell's Gate in BC as well.
You got a lot of hell.
Yeah.
What is the deal?
Well, actually, there's also a Devil's Elbow, so...
Does that lead into Hell's Gate?
No, it's a different area altogether, but it's a devilishly tough area of the river.
I love how everybody's just like, this is the devil.
Yeah,
dead. Just hell.
Yeah. It's a beer, too. Devil's Elbow.
Of course it is.
Yes.
Of course
Back
it
to
is.
Hell's Gate, Yukon.
Yes. So they gave aliases. They said they were Miller and Ross. So they were approached by NWMP Constable. Get ready for this name. Alec Pennycuick. I don't know where that's from. Somebody's probably screaming like, it's French.
It's Yukon. It's Yukon. I don't know.
It's Yukon Cornelius.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so they gave them this aliases, Miller and Ross. And they said they were prospectors. There's gold in them there hills. So when Pennycuick questioned them about some cash thefts in the area, they gave him these aliases. And while he was questioning them, he noticed that there was a really odd or unique kind of stovepipe where they were staying. It was very unique. The damper holes actually had kind of a figure 8 punched into them. It was something that he had never seen before, had never seen since then. So it was something that he took note of.
Yeah,
I mean, it's different, right? And usually, I guess when you're traveling and things are temporary, you're taking the stove stuff with you. That's the idea I got. Obviously, I live in a house with heat. I don't understand this anymore.
You never been camping before?
I'm called a softie, not with a stovepipe.
True, me neither.
If there's snow on the ground, that I'm not in it.
You wuss.
Probably.
Although I would never camp in their temperatures.
Yeah, probably. It's just not. I like my fingers and toes and all the other extremities. Okay. So by December 14th, Pennycuick received a warrant for their arrest, but they were gone, right? So he was investigating them about these caches being stolen. I guess people left caches along the trail.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, but they were gone. So more issues with theft happened in the area, and it was evident that the pair of winners hadn't gone far. So, there's plenty of cases that we cover where I'm almost impressed by the ingenuity or the hard work that's carried out with plans devised by, the knuckleheads we have. Before people get on their high horse, keep in mind I said almost impressed. Mm-hmm. Missed it by that much. In this case, it's truly an impressive feat at the turn of the century with very little technology, if any, very little money, if any, that any of this happened. So when O'Brien and Graves left that campground in Hell's Gate, they went south and they found an abandoned cabin. The cabin was called the Arctic Express Company's cabin, as it had been built by a short-lived mail and express service enterprise. My guess is that it went out of business with the telegraph lines, or it just didn't last very long in general. Can you imagine the advert for that business, the promises? Just like, hey, you choose us, and we at the Arctic Express Company will deliver your mail within a month. Got to go 14 miles north? Within a month.
Yes.
Got to go down the road? Within a month. Want to get a quick message to your boss about missing work? Within a month. What? Who else are you going to choose?
Yeah.
That's how I see that going.
Yeah. And you can choose between the different packages. The fastest is a month. And then there's 2 months. And then there's 3 months. Instead of 1 day shipping, 7 day shipping.
30-day shipping.
Yeah.
I'd like to pay for 30-day shipping, please. Oh, you want the speedy one?
Yeah, exactly. That's only 2 dog sleds and
yeah, it still might be quicker and more reliable than our current system. At least ours.
Sometimes ours too. There was just recently a package that was delivered from Canada Post that was lost for like 8 years. And it showed up and the guy's like, what is this? I don't know what the hell this is. And he opened, he's like, oh my God, I ordered this years ago. So it happens.
It's the best and the worst.
He was reimbursed already for it.
Then it's the best.
Yes.
We digress.
Yes.
We know that, this is where they came for many reasons. However, the biggest one of them all was the Yellow Dog.
Too bad you didn't have Yellow Dog Brewing. It's a local brewery here. Damn.
I have a feeling that your local brewery is not providing beer to my area.
Probably not, no.
But I like that.
Yeah.
It would have been smart. However, it's me.
Yeah.
In either case, after they spent some time there stockpiling supplies from caches that they did indeed steal out of, they moved south near the McKay cache that they were currently looting. They were on the river trail. They went 1,100 yards up the Pork Trail. Awesome name. That's an awesome name. And then they cut a new trail 600 yards into the bush. And then they made a tent with a log frame and a canvas roof. I mean, that's impressive to me. I couldn't make a tent with instructions. So well done to them. If I'm going camping, I'm going with you, man, or I'm screwed.
Camping's a big thing here. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Oh, I believe it. It is not here. So at this point, it's just a few days before Christmas. They're getting to that wonderful time of year that means nothing to them because they're asshats. So this isn't where preparation ended, though. They continued on cutting out more trails, and it all happened because of the robbery murder plan that they had concocted. Basically, here's what they did. They cut a trail of 1,250 yards east from the Pork Trail. That ended at the top of a cut bank by the river. Before the river, they cut another trail that branched off 125 yards and about 500 yards north of the cut bank. And from that cut bank, there was an open hole in the river, perfect for disposing of what they might need to. Not lottery tickets. So then, as if that wasn't enough, they made a lookout spot, cutting down 27 trees near the river to do it.
Wow.
That's not like... They're not like your mom. I mean, you gotta saw that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. The best sound effect. That was the best sound effect.
Glad to hear.
It gave them the perfect view of travelers walking down the river trail and the Pork Trail. And O'Brien even had binoculars. Like, he was ready to go. He's like, bird spotting, birds. Oh, there's people.
I would love to see what the 1800s binoculars looked like.
I can. It's like it's basically like curved glass and just like 2 cardboard tubes. He just used 2 cardboard tubes just to look through. I don't think cardboard tubes existed at that point, but at this point, it's pretty evident what they're planning. Right. Oh, those look fancy. Mike is showing me some binoculars. You know what? I would pay for those binoculars.
Yeah, just Google 1800s binoculars.
They helped you see about 15 yards ahead of you. That's about it.
15 yards further than you'd probably see otherwise.
That's probably true. So let's talk about the victims here. The first one's Frederick Hughes Clayton, who was born June 2nd, 1872 in Port Madison, Wisconsin. The father was an English seaman who jumped ship in Seattle in 1864. He was a well-known newspaper man, but he was also a scoundrel with public battles with his wife. That's like every day now.
I love scoundrel.
I know. He was a scallywag. He was a nitwit. I don't know. Children ended up doing well for themselves. The victim's sister became a renowned obstetrician, believe it or not, and a global public health advocate and a writer, which is really impressive back in the early 1800s. I'm going to be honest with you. Let's just address the elephant in the room.
Yeah, women at that time were housewives. Period.
Yeah. So the fact that she even became an obstetrician, now I don't know what the requirements to be an obstetrician were back in the early 1800s. Maybe it was just like you had some towels and hot water and you were just the obstetrician. But I mean, it's still pretty impressive. So Frederick and his older brother went north for the gold rush. They took as many shoes as they could buy in Portland, and they started a store in Skagway called F.H. Clayson and Company Outfitters. He made his last trip to Dawson in November of 1899. December 15th, he started south along the trail with his bicycle. He was going to rejoin his brother in the family business there, the shoe business. We will bring this all together in a second. Let's go to the next victim. So Lynn Wallace Relfe. He was born May 19th, 1876 in St. Louis, Missouri. His family was prominent. His dad was a state legislator. By 1890, they moved to Seattle, and his father was an attorney and became the police commissioner. And he was close to his father and was working with him as a clerk. By 1894, his dad started his own legal firm, and he worked for him as a stenographer. And then he was an assistant secretary at the Chamber of Commerce in 1895. So he's highly accomplished.
Yeah, for sure.
Lynn decided before settling down in the family business that he would head on to the gold rush. Why not?
Yep.
This was after his dad died at the age of 56. So it might have been a trip to kind of like find himself or learn something.
At 56, he's probably an ancient guy.
At that point, yeah, I don't know what the average age span was, but idea. That's pretty, I mean, you're doing all right, you know?
Medical was not what it is today.
No. You have a cold, let's bleed you.
Yes. Not many leeches up there in the Yukon, probably.
No. So I'm guessing this was a trip to kind of learn something about himself. He left Seattle in August of 1897, and he wrote to his mom along the way. He's such a good mama's boy. He arrived at Dawson City that fall, and he was reported to have worked as a gold weigher, a bookkeeper, a cashier, a bartender. He did a little bit of everything. He made a trip back to Seattle to visit his family. And a year later, he planned to make that same trip, but he wouldn't make it. Relfe and Clayson, our first guy that we talked about, first victim, they were traveling separately. But Relfe caught up to Clayson because he broke a pedal on his bicycle and was walking. Like, literally the worst. That's got to be the worst. Like, it's cold, and my bike pedal just busted.
And there's no bike shop.
Yeah, like like you think you blow a tire on the road, like you think that's an oh shit moment. That's not an oh shit moment. Like, this is an oh shit moment, right? So it's literally the worst. So they traveled together for most of the next week together. At their next stop in Fort Selkirk, Clayson wired his brother to expect him in Skagway at their store on December 28th. So the last victim, the third one, Lawrence Olsen. Very little is known about Olsen other than he was a lineman on the Yukon telegraph line, which sounds like a country song, to be honest with you. He was said to be Norwegian, actually, of descent. Quote, another newspaper article said that at the time of his disappearance, he was owed 6 months' wages. So he may have been part of the telegraph line's construction crew and actually took a lineman job after it was completed in order to make sure he was paid.
Jeez.
6 months' wages is wild. Like, how can you just hold that? But, you know, no labor unions then.
No.
He was known as being reliable by the NWMP, so the police.
Yeah, he keeps working for 6 months, though, getting paid. That's pretty fucking reliable.
You're right. I can't say I would do the same.
No.
So Olsen headed north to find a break in the line. Apparently there was an issue. He was going to repair it. Really, he was just trying to figure out what was stopping the telegrams from making it through, right? Quote, after about 16 miles, Olsen had not encountered the problem, and he stopped at Huchiku NWMP post to overnight with, I'm guessing it's Constable, CST. I'm guessing it's Constable. But
yeah, probably.
Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, y'all. You will, and that's fine. That's cool. Let me know. Patrick Ryan is his name. And Ryan had invited a couple of local woodcutters for Christmas dinner, and he actually extended an invitation to Olsen, who accepted and said he would be back on Christmas Day. The next day, Olsen fixed the issue on the line. It was late, so he went to a roadhouse to spend the night. And at the roadhouse were Frederick Clayson and Lynn Relfe, the other two victims. And thus, kind of the lives of those three merge, right?
Yeah.
And they'd be changed forever quite soon. which is probably the corniest line I've ever written. And that's saying something.
True.
So the three left after breakfast. Basically, got to make use of the daylight while you have it in the winter. I looked it up, and it actually seemed like daylight lasts from about 11 a.m. or 11:30 to around 4:30 p.m. And that's right. I looked it up for the late 1700s, early 1800s.
And that is not full daylight either.
No. Is it is it twilight or is
twilight?
It,
yeah, it would be just twilight. Yeah.
Jesus. I literally wrote here, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong with this one.
As far as I know, it would be.
And you did.
It'd be twilight. It would not be full daylight.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Like, it might not be full twilight, but it's definitely not full daytime light.
The trip in its totality was 16 miles. It should have been an easy one. And it should have only taken 4 or 5 hours. 6 miles from the roadhouse, O'Brien and Graves were on the lookout. Right? So, quote, there is no information to indicate that O'Brien and Graves knew who these men were. So they likely made the decision at that moment. They may have thought that 3 people were the optimum number because collectively they might have considerable valuables on them. Mm-hmm. And that the number of people would be, quote, manageable. So they waited for him. They waited, and they probably played out the robbery or murder in their minds the entire time. And when the trio neared, they were suddenly held at gunpoint. They were forced onto a newly cut trail. And it only took a few moments that the 3 were gone. So this is an excerpt from the 1901 article written by Major Henry Woodside. So strap in, everybody. As near as one can gather from the evidence and a study of the maps, the following would appear to have been the manner in which Clayson, Relfe, and Olsen came by their deaths. It would appear that, after sighting the approaching party from their lookout and having got into place on the short trail, one of the murderers remained concealed, while the other one, presumably Graves, went down the river trail and compelled the 3, at the point of his rifle, to climb the bank. Then one of the party must have given the word to run for it, or else the murderers opened fire. Because the unfortunate men started to scatter in different directions. But their night was short. Graves, standing midway up the low bank, put a bullet from his .40-82 Winchester through Clay's body before he got 20 feet from the edge of the bank. It was known that Graves stood midway up the bank because an empty shell from his rifle was found where he stood, and the mark of his bullet was found in a tree 9 feet from the ground, some distance beyond and in line with the spot where Clayson fell. Experiments with a rifle and target proved this fact. Please keep in mind that this is 1799, 1800. The observation is amazing.
Yes.
This is why I was so psyched about this source. Relfe got about 40 feet away on the opposite side of the trail when he fell with a bullet through his heart. One bullet was fired at someone on the trail, as its mark was found on a tree in the middle, over 100 feet from the edge of the bank. Traces of other bullets were found in the thicket, showing that the shots did not all reach their mark. Olsen, a powerful Swede, can I, if anybody ever called me a powerful Swede, I'd be set for life. Can I just say that? To be called a power, okay.
Yeah.
So he was evidently met by O'Brien, who used his revolver on him, at first without effect. So the traces of a terrible struggle were followed by some little distance on each side of the trail. Blood spots were found amid the marks of the struggle, and eventually Olsen was shot or beaten down, as when found he had a bullet wound through his head, which was terribly crushed, the skull being fractured. Several of his ribs were also broken. So to make sure of their work, the murderers shot Relfe and Clayson through the head as they lay on the ground. So what a whirlwind. What a clusterfuck of a situation. That's what that was.
Absolutely, yeah.
At the same time, I mentioned this before, but how impressive is it that they were able to deduce all of that in the late 1890s? After the murders, O'Brien and Graves stripped the bodies of clothing and valuables, as one does. They hauled the bodies up the bank and onto the trail that led to the hole in the river, and then they dragged them down the trails and dropped them into the hole. Of course, this is during the winter, so the majority of the river is frozen over. So the murder is carried out. Graves is nowhere to be found any longer. That's O'Brien's partner.
Yeah.
Folks probably think that thanks to O'Brien, he's dead. They did what they set to do. O'Brien wants everything. He kills them. O'Brien rambles on, and this is a triple murder robbery. So the next recorded sighting of O'Brien was on December 27th when travelers Jenny Prather and her husband bumped into him near the northern junction of the River Trail and Pork Trail. Imagine. He said he was heading for Atlin, so the Prathers invited him to join them on their southward journey. Come on with us!
Come with us! Come to Pork Chop Lane. No.
Yeah, for real. So he did so, actually. And after about a mile, they all passed by within 65 feet of Clayson's pool of blood in the brush.
Jesus.
Yeah. O'Brien traveled with the Prathers for a few days. And at a roadhouse on Lake LeBaire, he purchased a pair of black horses and a sleigh. All of a sudden, he has money for black horses and a sleigh. So these horses would lead to him coming into contact with NWMP. In addition, it was observed to be weird that O'Brien went from cooking the majority of his meals to buying them all. A little odd. Something as small as that was confusing to people because it meant that he all of a sudden had money. Same with buying the horses and the sleigh, etc. So around January 3rd or 4th, he was within distance of the American border. And during this time, an investigation was underway looking for the missing men. And there were multiple reasons for this. One of the men was joining his brother. Sent a telegram. He never showed. And then Olsen never showed up to Christmas dinner, which actually really worried the officer of the NWMP.
Yeah, and when you got the cops going, hey, where is this guy?
He was a buddy. He said he was coming. Police assumed they were missing until they eventually found the blood spots on the ground after clearing some of the newly fallen snow. So this was after they found the makeshift campsite as well. So, quote, inside was a bunk for sleeping, a stove, and a number of items, including a rifle hanging from the roof of the tent. At this point, they decided to involve Pennycook because he was very clever. Quote, very clever. Once Pennycook observed the tent, he noticed that it was evidently for two people. And the stove was very familiar to him. It had a figure 8 on it, which was the exact same design from when he questioned who he thought were Miller and Ross. Because there were stolen goods in that tent.
Yeah.
A warrant was issued for those names. So I guess the aliases worked out, kind of.
Yeah.
But with 3 missing, stolen cash goods in a tent, and names of Miller and Ross, things weren't looking good. I mean, it is 1899 or 1900. You know, we talked about this whole thing with the DNA. They didn't have that, obviously. The cases were just a few years before that. So, well, in this case, Pennycook wouldn't take a failed investigation for an answer. He just wasn't going to give up. So that's when he found the blood spots, and he found clothing burned in the ash along with a few other items. He found things strewn around the campsite, and that eventually led to the bullets that they found that I mentioned earlier, and things were coming together. But, this took time. They didn't have a metal detector. You had to clear the brush. You had to clear the newly fallen snow to make sure you had the right layer. But they were on their hands and knees, literally, searching for things, and they were sifting through the snow in order to get these answers. So among the ashes, like I said, charred pieces of clothing, buttons, and more. And around the bonfire, they found items strewn, including buckles, keys of safe drawers, an oil bottle, pieces of an electric belt, and a pearl-handled penknife. The keys were directly connected to one of the victims, as was the penknife. Quote, it was likely not a part of George O'Brien's plan to go near the NWMP post at Tagish, but he ended up there after his horses went through some ice nearby and into the water. This is called karma, and she is a bitch.
Poor horses, though.
I know. That is terrible. Like, could we just have him go through? That's fine. Yeah. He took them to the post barracks, perhaps thinking the stable there was his only option to get the horses dried off and warmed up. So he went to the NWMP's post barracks. While he was there, he was found to have a police-issued winter fur robe in his possession, which he said he had gotten as a replacement when the police in Dawson misplaced his. He was actually detained, while Sergeant George Graham sent a telegram to Dawson to verify this. And in doing so, Graham was provided details about O'Brien. including his big yellow dog.
Hmm.
Ba-ba-da-ba. So a return telegram later that day confirmed that O'Brien had been in the Dawson jail and was given a government for a robe there. Graham actually ended up releasing O'Brien. But eventually, the link was made. And the dogs, the horses, the traveling, the witnesses, the stove, literally everything fit together like a puzzle. I do want to say that catching O'Brien occurred before the murders were found out. They caught the man stealing from the caches. And it just so happened that while O'Brien was in jail, they discovered all of the other evidence. I can't believe there hasn't been like a film about this. You know, like let's toss Kevin Bacon in there. Why not? There's already 6 degrees. Let's make it 3.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the pork trail, so you got it, right?
I didn't even think about that one. That's brilliant. So everything was set. He was caught. Shit was found. He was charged for the murders on June 20th, 1900, and he stood trial in June of 1901. Still faster than most of the stuff today.
Yes, it's pathetic, but yes.
Yeah, this is one of those cases of the century, especially in the Yukon. Like, people lined up to get into the trial, and it was standing room only, and people were outside just trying to catch a glimpse of the court, right? Quote, it went until June 21st, 11 days. After 62 witnesses had been called to give evidence ranging from Kid West's jail conversations with O'Brien to identification of the stone with peculiar damper holes to identification of the big yellow dog that was always seen with O'Brien. In addition, over 150 exhibits had been prepared as evidence to assist the prosecution with its case.
Holy shit.
The defense had no case whatsoever at all. It's just like, yeah, fuck it. I don't know what to tell you. Like, you did it, man. That's it. End of story.
That's just one of those ones you just go,
all right.
Shit.
Right. Sorry. yeah, you got to clap for it. It's just like, that was well done.
Yeah, well done, guys. Well done.
Meanwhile, O'Brien's like, dude, put your hand down. He's like, the defense had no case. So the jury took 2 hours to consider everything. They came back with a guilty verdict. On the same morning, the judge was just like, I'm done. Like, he passed the sentence of death by hanging, right? That was it.
Yeah.
And that was to be carried out August 23rd. O'Brien never admitted to it. He never said that he did it, ever. Like, not in the time that he was in jail. None of that. He cursed everyone who put him in that situation until he hung.
Wow.
Yeah, which, I mean, a slight amount of badassery there. Just a little bit. Like, I can't imagine me being on a stool about to hang and being like, F you, F you, F you, F your mom, F you, F you, F you, and like, just like, kick, right?
Yep.
So that's the case of the Yukon Christmas murders. It is quite fascinating, and if you want to look it up, please do. The sources will be on the website. It is quite an impressive tale.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's like it's a true whodunit. Like, if you read the 1900 piece, it's like a whodunit, and it's written in such intense description. Like, I've been reading reports for a case that I'm writing now, and these are from 2012, and they are written like shit compared to this case that was written in 1900. So let's just leave it at that. That's pretty much how I feel. So that's the case.
That is quite the case. Holy balls.
Oh, man. It was invigorating to read. Like, I've done old cases before, but I've never seen like a full, like 20 plus page, like description from firsthand knowledge. So I nerded out pretty hard on this one.
Yeah. So I've called this case A Tragedy Strikes Dawson City. And the beer pairing that I've done for this one is called Numbskull Double IPA, because the person involved with this is a fucking numbskull. So yeah, this is the Numbskull Rotator 9, which uses Yukon hops. So this one's from Lighthouse Brewing in Victoria. The hops rotate on this all the time, and this is the 9th edition since they started rotating. It is a nice light 9.1% alcohol. So it's going to kick you in the ass if you're not careful. And it's a 22 ounce or 650 milliliter bomber bottle, which is pretty rare these days.
I'm sitting here at a 4.6%. I feel like a wimp.
Yes. It is a fairly large beer. It's pretty clear. It's kind of that copper color. It's got a sort of off-white head with lots of lacing sitting on that glass. Like, it just sticks on there.
That is, for those not playing the video game, that is one of the prettiest beers I've ever seen.
Yeah, and
it's gorgeous.
Super, super like tropical nose, kind of sweet. You're not getting much more than just like tropical and sweet notes on the nose. On the flavor, it's definitely big tropical pineapple, sweet, a little bit of resin in there. Not a ton of bitterness, but there's definitely bitterness. It's interesting because it's very clear, but the bitterness is fairly mild for a West Coast. So it's kind of in between a West Coast and an East Coast IPA. But yeah, it's really, really nice to drink. And, you know, it's not easy drinking per se, but I'm not tasting 9% alcohol either.
Which is both awesome and dangerous.
Yes, it is.
You know how I know it's good? Is because the head of the beer attached to your mustache. That's how I know.
Yes.
That's how I know it's a good one.
Yes, the head likes to stick around.
It's got the beard approval.
Yes, it does. Yes. And I'm halfway through this bomber already.
Whoop whoop.
Whoop whoop. So JT actually hit up a little bit of history of the Yukon, and I'm going to hit up a little bit of history to start this one too, because I was kind of, you know, channeling JT a little bit too.
Oh, that's dangerous, man.
Yeah, well, God, is it ever. All right, so let's start with a little bit of history of the area. Dawson City was founded in 1897 and named after geologist George M. Dawson that mapped the region back in 1887. Of course, this land had been the home of indigenous people well before the town was founded or settled. In 1898, the population of this northern town had hit a total of 40,000 people due to the gold rush throughout the north, including the Canadian territories as well as Alaska. By 1898, the population of the northern town had hit a total of 40,000 people. Currently, it is just over 40,000 for the entire territory, and this was due to the gold rush throughout the north, including the Canadian territories as well as Alaska. Due to the gold rush, this town became the capital of the territory. Things were not sunny, though, for the town, as the gold rush was done by 1899. And the population went from 40,000 to 8,000.
They said, fuck this, I'm going home.
Yeah.
I'm taking my ball and I'm going home to tell Mom.
Yes. So Dawson City would be incorporated as an actual city in 1902. So this is already as it's plummeting into population. When the population continued to drop down below 5,000 people.
God.
Yeah. Things were looking even bleaker for the city by 1911 as the population was a tiny 615. Yes, going from 40,000 to 615.
The old airport hair care tire center. Like everything was just combined. Jeez. God.
Our case begins in 1912, but I want to just continue with the history a little bit and say the population has fluctuated for some time, but after World War II, the Alaska Highway was built and would end up running 300 miles or 480 kilometers south of Dawson City. This would finally lead to Whitehorse becoming the capital of the Yukon Territory in 1953, because just no one was going there.
Can you imagine, like, just looking at the snowy wasteland? It's not, and I don't mean wasteland as in it's ugly. I mean, like, literally nothing there. And being like, I'm going to put a road through it. This is where this is going to go. And, like, everybody around you just like, I guess we got to go with his plan. I don't know. So...
Today, the population, as of 2016, is a fairly stable 1,375 people in Dawson City. So, you know, it's a small town.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. As a little side note, as I find it interesting, Dawson City is a 627 kilometer or 389-mile drive to the north border of British Columbia, or an almost 7-hour drive. From Vancouver, BC to Dawson City, Yukon, it is 2,897 kilometers or 1,800 miles or a 33-hour straight drive. Today.
That's by car, right?
Yes, by car.
I feel like there's a more direct route that could have been made.
No, it's a long distance.
Yeah.
The province of British Columbia is very big. It's bigger than California.
I
And
feel
the
like
Yukon is very big.
I feel like that drive is pretty much from like, I don't know, Florida to California.
Yeah.
That's insane. See, I learn new things, like the size of stuff. And it's not this distance.
Let's see here quickly. Florida to California. Pick a city in Florida.
Daytona Beach
Okay. One sec.
to San Diego.
Beach to San Diego, California is 3,938 kilometers. And what did I say?
You said 2,000.
From Vancouver to Dawson City is 2,897. So it is 1,000 kilometers less, but still.
Jesus. Everybody, I will tell you this right now. Everybody in the United States looks north and says, that's not that much. It can't be as big as the U.S. But of course we do, because we're ethnocentric, right?
Yeah.
Let me just use a big old SAT word here. But like, no. People don't get it. They don't get it.
The drive from Vancouver to Dawson City is 2/3 the length from, what did you say again in Florida?
From Daytona Beach, Florida,
Beach to San Diego, California.
It's freaking ridiculous. That is insane.
Huge.
And that's north.
Yes, that's north.
That's huge. It's huge with like 10 U's. Like it's Donald Trump huge. It's huge.
It's huge.
It's bigly.
Just to add to that, Dawson City is about halfway up the Yukon Territory. It's not even the top.
Nobody wants to go to the top.
For people that know Alaska, it is actually just south of Fairbanks.
God.
And it's 2/3 of the distance from a place in Florida to California.
You and me, we're doing a trip.
Okay, yeah, I'd love to.
You and me, we're going from Vancouver to Yukon with breweries along the way. It's gonna be awesome.
I need a different car because my car is currently in the shop because it sucks.
I will rent a car.
Okay, that's probably a better idea because
I will.
there's areas where you won't see a shop for hundreds of kilometers. Maybe
Rental?
thousands.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get back to the 1900s here.
Yes.
John Vaglio immigrated to the Yukon from Italy for the gold rush, leaving his wife and a daughter back home. This would not last a long time, though, as his wife, Camille Vaglio, and their daughter, Rosina, or Rosa, would follow soon after. Around 1903 would see the birth of their second daughter, Christina. Obviously, John came to Canada for the gold rush, but at some point, he would end up owning the Central Hotel in Dawson City.
wait. He went up for gold. He owned a hotel.
Yeah, can't get gold, at least get the gold from people that are trying to get gold.
You know what? That's a brilliant idea, though.
Yeah. I mean, they probably had a pub and everything. Like, there's lots of ways to get money when you own a hotel, right?
All you need is a
Especially in the early
saloon, baby.
1900s.
A saloon and gambling. You're in.
Exactly. So I wish I could find more information on this hotel, but it doesn't seem to exist anymore.
Aww.
I mean, when you talk about like early 1900s Dawson City, it's hard to find information about Dawson City today. Dawson City is no longer a city even, right? So
yeah. Oh,
yeah.
man.
And I looked up some of the hotels in Dawson City currently, and there's not a lot of well-rated hotels in Dawson City.
I'm gonna assume that it's like Holiday Inn Express. I don't know.
But worse, probably.
I'm assuming mostly motels.
Yeah.
Like for like your hard laborers, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So 1910 would see Camille's brother follow them to the Yukon from Italy and stay at their hotel.
God bless them.
Unfortunately, things would turn sour between the family.
How did I know this was going to a Shining?
No, beer and TV make Homer go crazy. First, let me set the stage that Rosa was between the ages of 14 and 16, and her uncle was 45.
I don't like where this is going, Mike.
No.
I don't like where this is going.
This is a quote from the report of the Royal Northwest Mounted Police for 1912, a 284-page document. Last summer, Eugene Vaglio became enamored with his niece Rosie and attempted to criminally assault her. He was not successful, and when the father John heard of his actions, he at once threw him out of the hotel, the Central.
I would hope so.
Yes. So you can see this is already not going well.
No!
His young niece he's enamored with, and young niece.
It'd be really weird if the dad was just like,
Yes. I mean, there's some places in the world where, you can marry your nieces and stuff, but not up in the Yukon.
What you mean is West Virginia. That's what you meant. You could just say it. It's fine. I'm in Virginia, which is West Virginia light.
Eugene would be heard threatening the family multiple times, a few times even to the face of John. So, this is not going well, right?
No.
He was not worried, though his family sure feared for their lives at the time. So, John was like, whatever. But the rest of the family was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
John even planned to go to the courts against Eugene, but his wife would talk him out of it, as she didn't want to cause a scandal in the tiny town, which would happen, right? Absolutely would happen.
Good grief. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there'd be a scandal with like 10,000 people.
Yeah.
And you're looking at what was it again?
It was pretty small by this time, but
Yeah. I mean, everybody knows.
Yeah.
And probably everybody knows anyways.
Well, the smaller you get, the more people know.
Yep.
July 4th, 1912 started out as any normal day in the town, but seeing as there were some Americans in town, there was an expectation of a bit of celebration for their Independence Day.
Now, hold on. I feel like you added this for me.
No, just,
this
is the way the story needs to go.
this is why I wondered why you opened the borders up to the toddlers of North America. This is what we do. We drink, we shoot fireworks off that can blow our hands up, and we call it Celebration for America.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
America, fuck yeah.
A truer song was never written.
I mean, Dawson City is not all that far from the Alaska border. After all, 9:05 a.m. would see a break in the peace and quiet near the hotel. What would sound like firecrackers would go off from the second floor of the hotel.
I didn't participate in any fireworks this past year for two reasons. And it's going to sound like I'm getting up on a high horse. But one, dogs. Or any pets. And two, veterans. I have way too many friends that just can't go to those or leave early because they just can't deal with that kind of stuff. And it's well known now. So it's like, can we do something else?
It's so hard because I do love fireworks, but also fireworks aren't as ingrained in Canada as they are there.
Well, and here's the thing, like culturally, they're really not that ingrained in the US. Like we
I
didn't
don't
invent
know.
them. Well, we didn't invent them.
No, but they've been ingrained pretty hard for a long time now.
I think that's an interesting topic to look into.
So, what would sound like firecrackers would go off from the second floor of the hotel? It would then go dead silent and be more than a little eerie. Some of the men downstairs would hear upstairs and would see what's going on, right? It was just like boom, 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 and then quiet.
You'd be interested.
Yeah. A man named Alfred Tetrol, who lived right behind the hotel, would see Eugene fire his gun at least twice from the gallery into the kitchen.
Give me those potatoes.
Yeah. He would then hear a woman scream, but wouldn't see what had happened. He was far too scared to go see what happened, though, because, I mean, fuck, like, it's not like you're just going to go and phone the local police at the time.
No. You can telegram them.
What's the number for 911? It doesn't exist yet.
It's called a horse to the telegram.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, run to the police station.
Literally. Oh my gosh.
Camille was the only one of the family at the time of the attack that was awake and dressed. She was in the kitchen literally making breakfast for the family. So probably making the breakfast for the family before she went down to make breakfast for the fucking hotel, right?
Right.
Eugene would then head to her and stab her 4 times, making sure she was definitely dead.
So he shot into the kitchen. He was like, that's not enough.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. It's very personal.
Mm-hmm. John would hear the shots and wake up and be in the process of getting out of bed when Eugene would burst into the bedroom and shoot him 6 times, once in the groin and once in the chest and 4 in the head. Talk about overkill, right?
My assumption is the groin was first. But I'm
I
guessing
don't know,
he was shooting.
but boom, 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 yeah.
Golly.
His body would be found in bed in a pool of his own blood.
As one does?
Yeah. After the parents, he would make his way into the bedroom of the 2 daughters.
Oh, no.
First to be killed would be Rosina, or Rosa, the 16-year-old, who he was enamored with. She would be shot 4 times in both arms, which has to mean that she was fighting back against her uncle, because that's a lot of shots, right?
Yeah.
Her life would be extinguished with a gunshot right to the heart.
Oh, my gosh.
He would again stab her multiple times after the fact. Just fucking done.
Your beer choice is becoming more and more apparent.
Lastly, he would move on to 9-year-old Christina. She must have tried to flee because her body would be found at the foot of the bed after the fact. She would be shot in both the hip and in the head just above her right eye, and one other time. Didn't say where else in her body, but one other time. She would only be stabbed 1 time in the head, but it would be a minor wound to the scalp.
Gosh.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rage involved in this.
Yes, there definitely is.
The stabbing after the shooting, it's you've said it already, it's overkill.
Yeah. So, of course, so many times there is no justice in murder cases, and this is just one of those times.
Oh, no.
After he had murdered his sister's whole family, he would end his own life. Wearing a suit and a bow tie, he would try to kill himself with his knife, including slitting his own throat.
Wow.
When that wouldn't work, he turned one of his guns on himself.
Put a suit and a bow tie on.
Yeah.
Which, I'm not a bow tie person. But
no, me neither.
I know it takes some skill to tie one. That's not
no clip-ons probably then.
No, not at all. He slit his throat. I'm recapping.
Yep.
That didn't work. And so I'm guessing he had a gun as the backup.
Yep.
God.
He obviously had guns going on, right?
Right.
So his bullet would enter his mouth and exit the back of his head, ending his life. Beside the body would be found a very bloody knife, as well as 3 guns, including a Colt automatic, an Ivor Johnson self-cocking revolver, and a Browning automatic.
I don't know much about guns.
Neither do I.
That seems like an intense amount of, like, I feel like you just need one.
Also, 2 of those guns are now illegal in Canada for sure, because automatic are illegal in Canada. Period.
Yeah. I mean, this goes back to from the very beginning, the Wild West with ice.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
snow, I mean, but an automatic back in the early 1800s?
No, this is the early 1900s.
I'm wrong.
Yeah,
the early
1900s.
Still, that's pretty. I don't know how he got them, but that's wild.
Yep. So he was found in a pool of his own blood. Like I had mentioned, once the supposed fireworks were heard, some of the men downstairs would be concerned and head upstairs to make sure all was okay. Unfortunately, these men would find a horrendous scene.
Yeah.
They would immediately, or as immediately as you could in 1912, that is, inform the town station. Constable Bowen would head to the hotel and start the investigation. 2 more constables would arrive soon after, and by noon, the investigation was fully underway. They would end up counting 21 bullets fired from the guns.
Oh my gosh.
21 bullets. It's fucking nuts.
That's wild.
One thing that was not present in the hotel was a suicide note. Eugene was a family annihilator, but didn't leave a note to explain why he did it. The only evidence as to why Eugene had done this is from locals that had heard him talk about wanting to get back at John's family.
I feel like suicide probably wasn't the end result that he thought was going to happen. Yeah. I feel like annihilation, which I think is an appropriate word. It's very dramatic, but I feel like it's an appropriate word for this. I feel like that was the main goal, and I feel like he was probably going to leave.
Yeah.
I think maybe conscience, heart, brain, whatever, got him. Which explains kind of the whole failed slit throat thing, because he wouldn't have planned to think about doing that.
Yeah.
So that's pretty fascinating. And that would also explain, I mean, easily why there wasn't a note of any form, because he wouldn't have been thinking that way at that point either.
Well, I mean, once he killed his sister, his brother-in-law, his love interest, which was his niece, and then the other daughter.
Right.
At that point, it's probably like, oh, shit. Right?
I might have went 1 too many. Or like 4 too many,
4 too many. But I mean, at that point, it's kind of like, oh, shit. There's no coming back from this.
No. There's no explaining your way out of this one.
So they would also speak of him being a man with a restless and nervous disposition. So this is another quote from the report of the Royal Northwest Mounted Police. Eugene was no good. He would not work unless absolutely necessary. And it is really believed that the cause of this tragedy, other than his infatuation of his niece, was jealousy on account of John's success in business.
Wow.
Yeah.
I also like the fact that their description of a fellow who's no good is one who wouldn't work unless he had to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're in a place like Dawson City, you either work or you're useless, basically, back then especially.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That is fair.
At 2 p.m., 2 coroner's inquests would be run, one for the family of John and Camille and one for Eugene. You know, looking into what happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
This next is a quote from the article alaskaweb.org. After taking the evidence of about 15 witnesses, the coroner's jury adjourned. The doctors are making post-mortem examinations. The hearing this afternoon was on the murder of John Vaglio and family. After that, a new jury will hear the testimony of the suicide of Eugene Vaglio. So this is the verdict of the jury. Eugene Vaglio killed John Vaglio, Camille Vaglio, Rosina Vaglio, and Christina Vaglio, and then committed suicide. The foregoing is the gist of the verdict rendered by 2 juries sitting before Major Horrigan as coroner in the Central Hotel tragedy. The first jury sat in the cases of the 4 who were murdered, and the second in the case of the man who committed suicide. The verdict rendered by the first jury reads as follows. We, the undersigned jury of 6, paneled by Horrigan, coroner, to examine into the matter of the death of late John Vaglio and the other names. After viewing the said several bodies, the bearing of the evidence of many witnesses to find that the said John Vaglio, Miss Camille Vaglio, Rosa Vaglio, and Christina Vaglio came to their deaths at the hands of late Eugene Vaglio by wounds inflicted with bullets from the revolvers fired by Eugene Vaglio and from the knife wounds inflicted by Eugene Vaglio.
I feel like they could have said, he did it.
Yeah, unfortunately, these old timies, that didn't happen.
Oh, yeah. You got to use more ink.
Yeah. That the said John Vaglio was wounded by 6 bullets, any one of the several of them would be sufficient to cause death. That the said Miss Camille Vaglio was wounded by 2 bullets and 3 dabs with a knife.
Dabs?
Any one of them would be sufficient to cause her death. Yes.
Dabs. So not like your,
No, not those dabs. Yeah.
Not those dabs.
No.
Which were popular, and now for dads are popular, but nobody else.
That the said Rosa Vaglio was wounded by 5 bullets and 4 stabs with a knife. Any one of several of them would be sufficient to cause her death. That the said Christina Vaglio was wounded by 3 bullets and 1 stab with a knife. The bullet wound in her head was sufficient to have caused her death. So, Dawson pays tribute to the victims. End quote. With not one member of the family remained in Dawson City, the area would come out to honor the family in death. John had been a member of the Fraternal Order of the Eagles, and they would escort the casket of the family in a double row of people that included the Dawson Brass Band. They would march the casket from the Eagle Hall past the hotel that they had lived at and past the local chapel. It was here that the caskets were transferred to pallbearers. The 2 sisters, Rosa and Christina, would be put on the same carriage in their little white caskets, all well covered in flowers. Behind their carriage was the carriage that carried John's remains. Behind his was the carriage that carried Camille's remains. The funeral would take place at St. Mary's North End Church. The casket of Rosa and Christina would be carried into the church by 6 of their young girlfriends. So, a couple of their friends, which is so awful to think of, these young girls that were probably carrying these caskets, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that's like literally one of the saddest group of folks to pick. But, it's moving in a way that people are
definitely.
like,
It's
this
moving,
is messed up. Yeah.
The small church would not hold the crowd that came out to mourn the family. Mm-hmm. The bodies would be then brought to the Catholic cemetery, where all 4 bodies would be lowered at the same time into their graves. It's safe to say that the family was missed in the town, as basically the entire town made it to their funeral. Which is saying something, right?
Oh, it's saying a lot.
Yeah. Eugene Vaglio was buried in the public cemetery around the same time, but there was no mourners at his burial.
They're predictable. I mean, you kind of messed up, bud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not because of the murder, but because Eugene killed himself, he was unable to be buried at the Catholic cemetery.
That sounds, as a cradle Catholic myself, no longer, but a cradle Catholic.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
It checks out,
I'm an atheist, but as a former Catholic, it checks out.
Yeah. It's accurate.
Yeah, it is.
Especially back then.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
So it's just so sad that this happened to the family, as they had brought the brother over to Canada to make his life better. But in the end, it spelled the end of the Vaglio family.
It's one of those things where it's like, I think for your sociopath, for instance, like, of course I deserve this. This is all about me anyways.
Yeah.
I deserve to be brought over for a better option. And now they're denying me what I want. How dare they, So there you have it. It makes no sense to those of us who are glad it doesn't make sense to. But for him, that was it. So, good grief.
Yep.
As Charlie Brown once said, good grief.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us for this episode. We hope you've enjoyed our episode on the Yukon territories. It's actually a really beautiful place, and I really hope to get up there one of these days. I mean, the amount of beautiful nature you'll find up there, and maybe even the odd polar bear, which I hope I never run into. It's amazing up there, right?
Not within 100 yards, right?
there's so few people and so much wilderness. It's just such an amazing place to check out. But we thank you for tuning in, and you can go to brewcrime@pacificbeerchat.com to email us if you want to give us any case suggestions or whatever you want to do, or just tell us you like us. Go to iTunes and send us a review, or wherever you find reviews. You can find us at brewcrime.com. You can get all of our sources and all that. If you want to find us on social media, go to @brewcrime. And if you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com/brewcrime. The money goes towards upgrading the equipment and making the show better. But also, as a Patreon supporter, you get bonus episodes once a month. Mm-hmm. And we're doing the odd video episode that you can watch us record these friggin' episodes.
But I'm also we really want to kind of give our Patreons their money's worth. So yeah. I'm hoping to add a lot more in terms of videos, either random things or, preparing or whatever, what have you. So it's definitely something that we're continuing to invest in, just so it makes sense that you invest in us.
Yeah. So shout out to our Patreon supporters. So True Crime Nana, 3 Beers In Podcast, Amber, and the Faves of Our Lives. Cheers.
Bye.
All cases found on Brew Crime are written by Mike or the guest that appears on that episode, and the sources are put into the show notes for each episode. We always want to give credit to the people that research the cases we talk about. Check out the store at tpublic.com/stores/brew-crime-podcast, where you can purchase gear like t-shirts, phone cases, stickers, pillows, and all kinds of other cool stuff. Brew Crime's intro was created by Mike using Creative Commons Attribution License audio from purple-planet.com, soundbible.com, and freesoundeffects.com. Logo design by Ben Greenberg. Thanks for listening to this podcast, and it's been a production of Pacific Beer Chat.
Hi. Welcome to The Jury Room, a true crime podcast. My name is Kevin, and I will be your host on this journey. We will be covering some of the most heinous, some of the most unthinkable, and some of the most monstrous crimes to ever be committed against humanity. We will be covering cannibalistic serial killers, decades-old unsolved mysteries, cold cases, missing person cases, and everything in between. The Jury Room podcast is available on most major podcasting platforms. Please make sure you go subscribe and leave a review.
Recording in progress.
Hey, we're in progress.
Yes. All right. I will play the intro. You know what? Wait a minute. I just realized when I record this, it records off of your source.
Oh, shit.
So let me share the audio because I'm an idiot.
You were kind of like jamming out, and I was just like, eh.
I noticed that. I'm like, oh, fuck. Okay, let's do this again. Where we drink beer. I already fucked it up. Forest fighter.
So I don't know. Do you want to hop right into the case?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Let me take a look here. Where all the beers made. You can hear clinking and clanking. I haven't drank a couple. It's going to be a great case, everybody.
Yeah.
Which I think you're going to hit on a good chunk of stuff regarding the folks native to Canada, right? With your upcoming.
Not a ton. Not really.
Never mind then. That's what happens when you try to cheesily plug something. Cut it all out.
Yep.
People thinks it's,
Although not released for at least a week, probably.
well, some time goes into making these listenable.
True.
He's Alec Pennycuick. Pennycuick. It's okay. Let's clarify this. It is Penny and then Cuick. Do you?
No, I have no idea.
All right, we're gonna call him.
Yeah, Pennycook. Yeah.
I wrote years. It's yards.
How many football fields is that?
1,250 years. It's about as much as it takes as an American football game to finish. Boom. Yay, sports ball. Before the river, that was for Jen.
Yeah.
His family was induced, jeez. 1890s, 1790s.
Yeah.
And now I'm confused on my own timeline. It's fine. So LaBerge, one of those. So these horses would lead to him coming into.
Oh fuck.
Be weird.
Sorry. Lead, and then you cut out. My goddamn internet.
That's okay. I wasn't that far. Stanley Room.
Boo.
Can I just say that saying NWMP was extremely hard after 4 beers?
I believe it.
Every time I said it, my brain was like, "Did you say that right?"
Yeah.
Hopefully, it wasn't too obvious that I had 4 beers.
Not at all. Actually, I don't know what it is. Your audio is going kind of like weird again. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Whatever.
Ooh.
It's more echoey all of a sudden. Whatever.
One moment.
Well, you're
Say
using
something again.
John, I think it's Vaglio. It's Vaglio.
It is. It is
Yeah.
Vaglio.
More beer.
That required a drink. But I'm in Virginia. So
What's that? Virginia Country Mama, whatever.
are you trying to quote John Denver again? West Virginia, country mama, take me home to my second cousin. That's not how that went.
It's about right.
Oh man,
geez.
I'm sorry, everybody. We joke, we kid.
Yeah. I've never sang on the show before, I don't think. Oh, no, I have maybe once, but not many times. Not pre-JT.
Well, welcome to post JT.
Exactly.
PJT.
Current JT.
Yes.
I forget that song now. Motherfucking day, yeah, America. No. That should be your anthem, I think.
That should be our theme song.
Oh, yeah,
it's
yeah.
fine. No.
Yeah, just get rid of anthems, theme songs. Boom. So, 3 gallons. Excuse me. Beer's burpy.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. Beer burp cut.